Black Ops 4 was announced and officially revealed, and we got our first looks at gameplay all the way back in May for the gameplay reveal. One of the big things that immediately people caught on to was the main fundamental change to how multiplayer would work. And I don't mean this in a sense of some things that were still apparent that did change the fundamentals, like manual healing within Black Ops 4, but I'm talking about a little bit more basis of how multiplayer is even played. Because at the multiplayer reveal for Black Ops 4, it was showcased that multiplayer would no longer be 6v6 in Black Ops 4, but instead would be 5v5. Now, coming out of those lobbies that we ended up gathering from the reveal itself and then also E3, we got to notice that the max number of players in a lobby would be 14 in those builds that we've seen thus far. And that's something that up until that point, we had no information on, maybe even a ground war or something like that, but with 14 players, it might indicate that 7v7 is coming, but still regardless, when you break it down, it's still much different than that of what we've seen previously in just the core fundamentals of how many people can play Call of Duty at once within Black Ops 4. But then when the beta came around here this past weekend, we saw the introduction of a brand new thing that we had no idea was going to happen up until right about when it started, that being the Chaos Moshpit. And that is where we're going to be talking about today, how this could potentially have an underlying meaning, a hidden truth behind it per se. And so in that sense, I want to talk to you guys about what the Chaos Moshpit may have actually been implemented for within Black Ops 4's beta and what it may mean for the future of multiplayer matchmaking within the game. So that said, we're going to jump right into it here with this. Once again, the reveal in E3 were a little bit different. 5v5 lobbies, of course. Lobbies supported 14 players, ground war potentially, or that private lobby match was 7v7, 14 players in total. But how well will that stack up going into the future? Because as we mentioned, the beta introduced the Chaos Moshpit, which for those of you guys that did not get your hands on the first weekend, or right now if you're not playing it right now, if the game isn't live at the moment, it was TDM and kill confirmed. TDM first, kill confirmed added a little bit later. That actually was 6v6. It was something that did add one more player, so kind of a compromise between ground war and standard core from what we end up seeing just at the baseline of what Black Ops 4 will offer. Now, Chaos Moshpit doesn't necessarily exceed the 14 players that we've already seen as that max within Black Ops 4 from what we saw at E3 as well as all the way back in May for the reveal, and we probably won't be able to see what that final number is up until right around when the game launches, when people get their hands on copies early, whatever it may be, because the beta does not offer private matches. That's something that would be cool, of course, but the main focal point of the beta itself is to get hands-on experience for weapons, maps, specialists, score streaks, all that kind of stuff in the hands of the regular players out there that can't necessarily make it out to E3 or a reveal event. So in that sense, the game is opened up on a much larger scale to a larger number of players that previously would not be able to play the game. And of course, it's also to gather feedback for what changes can be made to kind of tune and adjust the game accordingly to what the community sees fit and what they want to enjoy once the game actually launches, instead of having to do that after it launches and then having people wait from their initial purchase point. So in that sense, it offers just a sort of head start on the development process and adjusting things, but regardless, we don't have those private matches because we're just focused on the gameplay right now. So as it stands, we have no idea if the final number will be 14, if it'll go back up to that 9v9 that we've seen previously with a lobby support of 18 players. We don't know about that just yet, but one also cool thing about Chaos Moshpit that again shakes up the fundamentals of how multiplayer was seen the past couple of months at those early reveals and gameplay experiences is that you can also take a second specialist per team, because that was also one thing that a lot of people were kind of rubbed the wrong way with in what they saw at the reveal as well as E3, because each player on each team could only choose one specialist. There could be no overlap. So previously you weren't able to take two Seraphs, two Recons, two Crashes. You couldn't take any overlap. So if somebody picked one that you wanted to play, you were out of luck. It was first come, first serve basis. Whoever loaded into the game first got their first pick of the litter, and then whoever loaded in late per se, or joined late even, that was something they just got stuck with whatever was left over. So in that sense, it wasn't all that great, and a lot of people weren't too fond of that. And it's still not exactly the same way where you have like Black Ops 3, you can pick any specialist that you want. It is something that does try and balance it out a little bit further, but at least in Chaos Moshpit, you can take two instead of just one. So that's a cool cool little addition that once again is trying to kind of challenge the convention that Black Ops 4 has set for the fundamentals of how multiplayer is played. So now getting into the sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy theory with this, what could the underlying reason for Chaos Moshpit be to be added in with the beta? Sure, it could be something that may actually have just been there from the very beginning, that Treyarch and the developing team over there were like, well, it'd be kind of cool to have it a little more hectic, where players could have a little overlap. They could have one extra player here for maps that are primarily built to be smaller, so let's throw it in 6v6 instead of 5v5 and allow them to take another specialist. But what if it actually has a different meaning than just the more whimsical, fun approach to it? What if it actually is a way for Treyarch to gauge and potentially change the fundamentals they set as a precedent for Black Ops 4 all the way back in May? Because they did see that feedback that maybe not many people were really into 5v5 or one specialist per, and so they decided, you know what, let's do a sort of community vote here on this, just without them really noticing. We'll gauge the player numbers here out of the beta, which gets played more Chaos TDM or 5v5 modes like Control or the Capture Mosh Pits. Now admittedly, this is a little bit more sneaky and therefore might not exactly be the case, because what Treyarch has done so far has been very transparent with the beta, but it would be very similar to how Sledge did community polls over on Twitter. Now granted, their Twitter following may still be a very small subset of the player base. What Sledgehammer did with World War II was allow for a couple of issues the community really were vocal on to get their voices heard a little bit further, except for save that hardcore Ricochet one. That never actually got implemented at all, save for a weekend warfare playlist that we've seen once or twice since then. But other than that, Sledgehammer did some community polls on Twitter to try and gauge the feedback of issues to be changed within the future of World War II at that given point. So things like domination score, hardcore Ricochet, those sort of things were all big controversial talking points within the community about the game. So it might be something that Treyarch is doing to just simply gauge how the feedback and player numbers go, because if a large majority of players are going to 6v6 rather than 5v5, that might provide them some very interesting and beneficial feedback for changes to make after the beta. Because that's also one interesting thing with beta we have to keep in mind, is that we are still yet to be certified gold within Black Ops 4. So what that means for those people that don't necessarily follow game development all that much, being certified gold means that your game is ready to press to discs. That's the game version that you send out for Microsoft and for Sony to press onto their physical discs to sell. While digital is becoming more of a thing and discs may be going by the wayside in the next 5 to 10 years, it's still something that whole process, and to be able to be certified and placed on a marketplace, you need one final build of the game. So Black Ops 4 has yet to reach that stage, and I would imagine that around 2 weeks after maybe the beta ends up, because it's usually around a month or so before the game launches that it's certified gold, maybe 2 to 4 weeks after the beta launches up, that's when it'll happen, but we still have that amount of time for there to be subsequent changes made to Black Ops 4 based off community feedback, which is stuff we've already seen with the beta. I mean, we already had a title update during a beta here for weekend 2, so that's something that of course addresses some problems and issues, and also will be continuing to go forward as such. So if that feedback can be taken in a serious manner, who's to say that there's not some core fundamentals of how multiplayer works changed out as well, essentially in the way of 5v5 moving back over to 6v6 and potentially standard ground war, which I don't know with the map size how well that would work, 9v9 on some of these smaller maps, but also the ability to take 2 specialists instead of 1. Now ultimately we won't know until just before launch, once again when early copies go out or so, because then we'll be able to see what the max number a lobby can actually support, whether that still be 14 players, whether it be 16 to go 8v8 or something like that, or if it's something that we go all the way back up to our standard 9v9 and 18 is the most we can support. We won't know up until that point, but for now I think it's an interesting thought, because while Treyarch has already changed the dynamics of the game, they can potentially change it back if the community isn't too fond of it. With so much transparency in the game thus far with beta updates from Treyarch and from all the adjustments already made so early on, it's not the worst thought or the least probable thought in the world either, being that they have made these changes consciously based off of what the community wants. So who's to say they don't do it with some of the fundamentals that don't necessarily break the game in a sense and allow for more players to end up jumping in a lobby at one time. But who knows? Treyarch are also shaking up more to the core of the game that we know of, from health regeneration being manual, body armor, respawns and search and destroy. Yeah, that's actually a thing, by the way. We'll talk about that more if you guys want to. And many more things have also been changed also, so maybe it's a completely wrong read of the situation, and it won't actually amount to anything other than just having one separate playlist that is a little bit more fun and hectic than others. Who knows? But again, to me, it's an interesting thought in my mind that I wanted to share with you guys and gauge your feedback on. So that said, love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Do you think that there is some ulterior motive or something that has a secret underlying truth to why Chaos Moshpit was added into Black Ops 4's beta? Or do you think it's something that is just there for the fun of it, to be able to add another player on, become a little bit more crazy and hectic, but also allow for some more choice within the specialists within Black Ops 4, that if you do join a little late, you're not necessarily bound by whatever's just left over, the scraps of everything. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. I think this is a very interesting topic, so of course leave me your thoughts on all of this down there. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty Black Ops 4, anything in relation to updates, best class setups, tips, tricks, news, information, tinfoil hat conspiracies like this one from time to time, whatever it may be. If you guys are interested in any of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and anything Call of Duty related for that matter. World War II is still very relevant right now, and I'm still having a ton of fun with it, so if you guys are interested in that, of course subscribe button's there so you don't miss a single thing. But if you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And also if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, that link is down there for you guys also. With that said, hopefully you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.